I've studied a lot with a lot of teachers, with Eckhart Tolle, with Tony Robbins. I've done a lot of study, a lot of work, but I end up still learning more about postmodernist science, for instance, because science doesn't recognize consciousness.
Do we all have spirit guides? And if so, how do we find out who our spirit guides are?
This is how we can all connect to our guides, understanding our strong points. There is more understanding when the frequency is the same, but we are communicating with frequencies at all levels. We are actually attracting to us those who are vibrating at the same level as parts of us are vibrating.
How can we effectively apply the law of attraction in our daily lives to manifest our desires? Bola, talk to me about becoming energy sensitive at a young age.
Mm. The interesting thing about all of us is that we are all intuitive. All of us, every single one of us. It's just about how we understand the messages we are getting, how we develop our connection with consciousness. When I was very young, I knew that I could understand some of the things that my grandmother, who had passed, was saying to me. When my father passed at the age of 11, I could understand his voice when he said to me, "Go here, leave here, don't stay under this bridge, don't go across that street, don't do this." I knew it was his voice. So I could not deny that I was hearing the voice of my father who had passed. But what tends to happen in our cultures is we don't encourage these conversations. We don't encourage these relationships with beings who have passed, with beings from other dimensions. So I had a lot of confusion in me around what to do with these emotions, with these sensations I was getting. But I knew that I wanted to continue to have it. So I was very sensitive about that. But I was also disconnected because I stuttered as a child. I was stuttering from as far back as I can remember. So I didn't really have a lot of friends that I could connect with on a deep level. I was very social. I was an A student. I was a school prefect. I was good at the academics and all the things that my mother was really interested in. But I didn't really feel very connected with those that were living. I felt more connected with those who had passed. And so that was where it all started. I did not really get comfortable with my own spirit self, with my own spiritual gifts until well into my 40s. So that's been a journey.
Your father passed when you were 11 and you could distinctly hear his voice. So would you call it a spirit guide or an angel?
Is a guide. Is a guide. Family members can be guides. You can have guides from other dimensions. You can have guides, in terms of your ancestors or guides from your oversoul level, because every oversoul has so many different souls. I'm a part of an oversoul that has other souls from all over the world and all other dimensions as well. So this understanding that you can have guides from anywhere, including your family members that you know, and family members that you do not necessarily know. I remember being told about my grandmother's brother. My mother passed in 2020, and she was a theologist, a Christian in church. She was very much a lay reader, in church. And she understood that I diverted from that, but she didn't really support me when she was alive. Well, she did ask for Reiki energy healing after I gave it a try with her on a particular day. She said, "Oh, I felt it. Oh, I slept I've never slept this good, she said to me. But she never, it wasn't more than that. It wasn't more than receiving Reiki. But then she passed and then she said to me, your Uncle Abraham will really help you with this work. I didn't know who Uncle Abraham was. So I had to ask my aunties, who is Uncle Abraham? And I found out that he's actually the brother of my maternal grandmother, who I'd never known. Nobody had told me that name before. So that was interesting that he was my guide. So now I call on him to guide me. So yes, we do have guides, several guides, which we can call on to do different things, to support us to do different things.
Now, how did she know that he was one of your guides? Was he also one of her guides?
I don't know. She had never mentioned him to me when she was alive. But after she passed, I heard her voice, and she said to me, all the work you're doing, your Uncle Abraham will support you with it. He's the best person to help you with it. And I found out that when I asked around about him, he had a wheat farm in the 50s. So he was well into astral traveling, well into medicinal plants. Um, he was well before his time. I was told he was about 7 feet tall, very tall, and he never married. He never got married. So he was an unusual man, an unusual man. So yes.
Okay, so I did not plan on going this route, but I'm just going to follow it. Do we all have spirit guides? And if so, how do we find out who our spirit guides are?
I believe we all have guides. We all have guides in the spirit world. We are spirit beings, first and foremost. There is a part of us that is in spirit, in 5D, all the time. And we come into this earth plane, we're born into third density. These are just the levels of density that we have come to understand our existence with. Because we all need things to kind of help us understand and rationalize how our existence, how we live our lives, how we evolve. We all need different things that help us to understand life. And density is a good way to understand life. We have the physical ego self, which is in the third density, and everything we see around us is the third density. Then we have also the fourth density, which is still physical, but of a higher frequency. There is a lot more love, a lot more compassion, and it's all about the circles per second that our cells are vibrating at. So we can actually have cells vibrating at very low frequency, very low cycles per second, about 40,000 cycles per second. And then when we do all the healing, significant amount of healing and transformation, those cells begin to vibrate at a higher frequency. And I have learned that it's about 175,000 cycles per second. When you have healed to that level, you move on to the fourth density. And then when you continue, because it's a journey, so you continue that healing, you continue to transmutation, the surrender. The surrender is really about the physical ego self, surrendering to that higher self, that spirit self. Spirit self is this higher self that is a part of infinite intelligence, part of God, part of universal energy. So we all have that. We all have that spirit self, no matter what frequency we're vibrating at. We all have that spirit self in the higher frequencies of about 330,000 cycles per second. And by then, if by the time we have transmuted all the things that we have come, because everybody has a theme, everybody has a journey that is unique. When we feel we have done all we have come here to do, that is when we find ourselves passing away into 5D, fifth density. But the spirit self is always there. So you hear people talking about being in fifth density. It's about connecting to that spirit self, that higher self that is dwelling in. So we do have the energies helping us on the day to day. But how do we hear? Your question is, do we have spirit guides? We have a lot of guides. The higher self is a guide. We could have past relatives, past ancestors. They're all guide. They're all here to help us. When I think about myself as a mother and my two sons, if I pass, I've invested so much in those books. If I decide to pass away tomorrow, where am I going to leave them? I'm not going to leave them. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be with them every step of the way. All they have to do is allow that connection to be. So those who have loved us and their grandchildren, their children, they're part of me. So the same way we show love to our loved ones when we're alive, we still have those energy connections, even when we pass. So there are guides who love us, and it's all about love. It's all about love. The intentions that we hold guide us to hold the meanings that make sense to us. So if we decide, if we choose to hold a meaning, I could choose to hold an intention or a meaning that all the things my father is saying to me, or my grandmother or my mother is saying to me, are all going to get me into trouble. That is what is going to happen. Because we are co-creators. We are manifestors. So our intentions are really, really important in the meanings we actually give to the things happening around us, and in the actions that we take, and in what we see reflected back to us. It's all down to us because we are infinite creators. We are part of God. So, yes, I have the intention, and I've always experienced my relationships with my father. When he was alive, we were actually not best of friends because he was very much a traditionalist. And I was his only girl, and he was so determined for me not to associate with boys at all. And you know, as a girl, you do want to kind of have friends of all genders. And he would always criticize me for those things, although he was also very supportive with regards to my stuttering. He was a stutterer as well. He was a barrister and he was also a stutterer. So he taught me how to be calm, how to breathe and be calm and before I speak. So that my journey into emotional calm started way back before I was even 5 years old. And my father was saying to me, take your time to talk. I will hear whatever you have to say. I'm here. Just take your time. I'll listen. And that really helped me. But he wasn't my best friend, but now he is. Now he's on the other side. He has seen me through um, kidnapping. He has seen me through highway robbery. He has seen me through a fire, through a mobbing. He has seen me through very difficult situations, telling me what to do, telling me what to say. This is how we can all connect to our guides, understanding our strong points. Because we all have this intuition. And it may be that we are sensing, so we have a knowing. We may have a knowing, a clear sentience about what we need to do. Or we may be seeing visions. We may have strong imaginations and we're more clairvoyant. So we can actually see what needs to happen in our mind's eye, or we can see it on YouTube or on TV, and there is a voice that will say, this is for you. Or we see it in the mind's eye. So we could be more clairvoyant, or we could be clairaudient, where we actually hear the words and we know the voice, or we may not know the voice, but we become familiar with the voice. Because I've come to realize that we have very familiar guides working with us. And when I say familiar, guides who stick with us, they stick with us and they support us for the long run. They're not just there for a day or two, they're there for the long run. And we can become familiar with what they're saying, the energy they carry, because they carry this energy frequency. I'm also an Akashic record reader and an energy practitioner. So I really understand the vibrations that I get. And we all know when we feel low. We know when the vibration has changed. When we become self aware, this is why self awareness is so important. And it's what I teach on my Smith Emotional Mastery Program, my 8-week program, where we start off with self-awareness, where you're really beginning to understand how you communicate with your guides, how your guides communicate with you. And when we come to this place, it makes it much easier to navigate life and we don't feel so alone.
Going back to our cells vibrating and the pace at which they move, does that determine the way that we connect with other people when we vibe with someone or we have a strong connection with someone? Is that because our cells are moving at the same rate?
Not always at the same rate, but we do feel a stronger resonance when there's a telepathy that goes on where we actually understand what each other is saying. We actually understand how they feel about us. There is more understanding when the frequency is the same. But we are communicating with frequencies at all levels. What I've come to understand, this is what the law of attraction says, Abraham Hicks' law of attraction. Talks about how we are actually attracting to us those who are vibrating at the same level as parts of us are vibrating. So if you
Parts of
think about it, now we always think we only have one identity. We always think we only have one personality. But we are actually many different personalities, many different identities. The person I am with my children as a mother is not the same person I am with my parents as a daughter, or the same person I am with my brothers as a sister, or the same person I am in the boardroom as an entrepreneur. There are different parts of us, and each of them has a frequency they're vibrating at. So it may be that as a mother, I'm not always vibrating in this kind of high frequency position. I'm sometimes vibrating at a slightly anxious position because there's some parts of me that has to surrender a lot more and be less anxious about some of the vulnerable persons in our lives. We consider our children much more vulnerable than we are. And it takes a lot of understanding and letting go to actually allow them to be the co-creators they have come to be. But it's always there as a parent. The code I'm vibrating as a parent, is very different to the code I'm vibrating as a coach or a healer or an entrepreneur. And we will connect with those who are vibrating at the codes that we hold. It can be no other way. We cannot attract or connect to those we are not on a similar level. But sometimes we say, oh, I've been working on myself for so many years and I feel very relaxed, very, very, very grounded. I've transmitted a lot of my trauma. Why am I still connecting with particular people who I do not resonate with? It's because there are still parts of us that hold beliefs. There are belief systems. Each belief system is an entity on itself. It actually perpetuates itself. And I say entity as a very powerful creative force within it. So the different belief systems that we hold are embedded in the different personalities that we have. So we will find ourselves attracting certain experiences and certain relationships that do not necessarily correlate with certain parts of us. So we have to hold space for those things. This is about integration. So even though parts of me are believing this or parts of me are calling in this particular experience, I'm seeing that. I'm understanding that. I'm healing that. I'm holding space for it. But I'm also making it clear to myself with compassion that this is my dominant frequency. This is what I want to continue to experience. So that's integration. This part of what I also teach in my Smith Emotion Master. It's about self-awareness, being aware of all the different sensations, emotions, and beliefs that we have. And then there is a mindfulness, knowing what we prefer, what we do not prefer. First, you have to be aware of all the diversity around you. And then you're aware of, okay, I no longer want to have this experience, so I want to have this. And it takes time to actually allow ourselves to see these things because there are parts of us that are really not wanting to examine ourselves. There's a fear that how far will this take me? Will it lead to good? Will it lead me to feel less confident? There's such a strong difference between intuitive confidence and regular confidence. Intuitive confidence is much more profound, and you can only get there once you have become very familiar with your own intuition and your own true self, your higher self. So, yes, that's the resonance will be there for things that we do prefer and things that we do not prefer, but we have to integrate all of that. And what tends to happen, we will never get to a place where we no longer have things to integrate. We'll never get to a place where we are completely vibrating at just a one frequency. The life plane requires so many different identities, so many different personalities. The ego self is a system of beliefs, a system of personalities that we need to function. I will never stop being a mother in this life. I will never stop being a sister. I will never stop being an entrepreneur or a coach or a healer. These are the things that we have come to explore. And each different personality has a different set of beliefs. Some beliefs are common, but there's some that are quite unique to those personalities. And as long as we are operating on this life plane, we will have these different, um, sometimes it's coherent and sometimes it's not. And we are developing a deeper congruence. That's the journey, a deeper inner congruence, different parts. And it's about integration. And then there is the trauma recovery, which is ongoing because we're peeling layers. It's like an onion. Trauma recovery is just layers and layers of negative beliefs, of past experiences, of lifetimes. For instance, we know that some of us experience some of the, we repeat some of the experiences of our grandmothers or our grandfathers. We're repeating it in our present life. Even before we know that they had those experiences, you get told that your grandfather did that, your grandmother did that. So those are layers we need to peel away if we no longer want them. We have to take responsibility. And then there's a transmutation, which is where we are becoming more and more congruent with that spirit self, that higher self. And those are all steps, the 5 steps of my speed emotional mastery.
Those layers of the onion for the trauma, do we ever get to the bottom of it, or is that what enlightenment is?
It never stops. It just gets less and less. In terms of enlightenment, enlightenment is really our transmutation to live more as that higher self. It's a journey. Enlightenment is not a one-off thing, it's a journey. We get deeper and deeper embodiment of that light, this higher frequency, which is about love. And that's what my book is about, Daily Soul Bites. Daily Soul Bites is now available anywhere books are sold online, and it's really about higher perspectives of higher self. Higher perspectives are things like love, compassion, resilience, forgiveness. We can begin to align more and more with those things as we begin to become much more enlightened. We embody more of those perspectives. You would be surprised how sometimes we are resistant to forgiveness. We're sometimes resistant to compassion. It's because we're being driven more by the ego self. The more we can allow ourselves to feel really deep compassion for ourselves, those different personalities that we have, to reduce the amount of time we're criticizing our own self. When we make a mistake or when we feel that something has happened because of or because of the steps that we took or the actions that we took, we can come to understand that there is something we've learned from that. And it's not about what has happened. It's about how we respond to it. No matter what happens, how we respond is key. So enlightenment is about embodying more of that higher self, more of life. And it's a journey. We will always have trauma recovery going. It's just less. We find it quicker to resolve the trigger when it comes up and align to higher perspectives, align to compassion, align to love, align to freedom. These are all higher perspectives. And we can come to really cherish these perspectives and allow them to become very familiar to us. So we choose them very consciously. When something happens, we're choosing to forgive ourselves. We're choosing to show compassion to ourselves. These are the higher perspectives in our lives. And Daily Soul Bites shares 31 higher perspectives. And it really is about awakening and understanding within. Anyone who connects with it, an understanding of higher perspectives and the perspectives that we hold, because there are thousands of higher perspectives, but this is about really just awakening within us an alignment, an understanding of higher perspectives, so we can begin to choose them more and more in our day to day.
You mentioned the Akashic Records earlier. What are they, and how do you utilize them in your practice to help people gain insights into their lives?
That's a great question. The Akashic records is this energy library within us. And this library contains all our past lives. It contains all the information of what we have been up to as a core frequency. We are infinite parts. We are infinite parts of infinite intelligence. We have been around since existence began. We have had so many different lifetimes, and each lifetime has an information, as a code, as wisdom to pass on to us. We don't always have this wisdom on the day to day. So that's what I do in my Akashic session records with my clients. I support them to understand some of the lessons from past lives, some of the gifts they've come to offer, because once we remember it, once it's awakened within us, so I do a clearing of resistance, a healing of trauma as well takes place. The 3 hour sessions. And it actually allows us to reconnect to some of the gifts from the past. It took me an Akashic record clearing to remember that I was a healer in my past life. And once we open up this information, we never lose it. It begins to expand within us. There's so much conditioning in our day-to-day that doesn't allow us to see our truth, to see who we really are. And when we begin to connect with these gifts, it feels so familiar. It feels so loving. It feels like, my goodness, I feel at home. And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting life. We're such dynamic beings, I tell you, Jessica. We have so many different layers. When we begin to really connect with these layers, we will realize how the more we learn, the less we know. It's like there's always so much more. There's always so much more because I've spent years, I have a degree in psychology. I've studied a lot with a lot of teachers, with Eckhart Tolle, with Tony Robbins. I've done a lot of study, a lot of work, but I end up still learning more about postmodernist science, for instance, because science doesn't recognize consciousness. And then you begin to see all the studies. I also had an out of body experience in 2020, which is where I just found myself being like a light, a little a candle in this dark space. And I could hear my brother's voice calling me. And I'd read about out of body experiences before that, but I'd never had one. So having one and knowing that, my goodness, I am still alive. And this is what science has struggled with. When you're clinically dead, when your brain is declared dead, but you still can come back, and you come back and you can tell them what they were saying about you when they thought you had died. You can tell them things that you were not supposed to know. Science has no explanation for that. Postmodernist science has an explanation for that because there is a belief, there is an understanding of consciousness, of a spirit self. So I'm developing more and more um, understanding of how vast our dynamic self is, the spirit self that we are. It is infinite, and there's a lot I am still learning myself.
So how do we find out what's in our Akashic records? This is one thing that I've never explored personally. I've done a lot of different healing modalities and spirituality. I don't know what you would call them. I've worked with a lot of people when it comes to different things like soul retrieval and meditations and things like that. And I've heard of Akashic records many times, but how do you actually find out what's in your library? And do you need to work with someone and they kind of access that for you? Is that something that
Yes,
you do in channeling?
yes. It's very similar to having a Reiki energy attunement. You really work with a master who has trained up to attune others to read Akashic records. So
Mhm.
I trained up with Garrett Petrov, and he has been, really helpful to support me to set up my own practice with it. But I think that there might be people who can read a book and somehow, I don't think anything is impossible. I think you might be able to read a book about it, but you do need to actually put yourself in that space. There is a need to put yourself in the space where the ego self is ready to surrender, to receive the messages, to receive the um, the healing that comes with it. Because there is a healing that comes in order for us to open up to receive these messages and to understand how the messages are coming to us, whether it's visual, whether it's vocal, whether it's by sensing, whether it's by symbols or light, just a knowing. There are different ways that we will get this information that we're now passing on to our clients. And it's about really getting to understand our own self as energy healers a lot more. But it may be that somebody who decides to, I couldn't have done it. I knew I needed a master to actually support me to release the doubts within me that I could do this, access this information. But if we do not have these doubts, they're all different. We can actually communicate with those records because they're within us, they're there. All an Akashic record reader is doing is really breaking down the barriers, breaking down the blocked energy meridians that are stopping us from flowing with that Akashic record. But it's there within us.
Is it true that those signs that we're getting from lights or sounds or images, that we get them all the time and that we're missing them?
Yeah. It's about the vibrations, about the because we can only sense what we have a vibration of within us already. Everything is vibration, everything is frequency. So if I'll give you an example. I had a friend who sent me a video of Muji. Muji Baba is somebody I've worked with a
Yes,
lot.
Muji.
Yes,
I
yeah,
dated someone who went to his silent retreat.
amazing. He's one teacher who really helps you connect with that space consciousness within, which is where the higher self dwells in. Adyashanti also does that very well. And I actually run Adyashanti monthly gatherings here in London. So there is that space within us that we can come to connect with. And this is where our higher self dwells. Now, when we are vibrating at the frequency of the ego self, which is a lower frequency, a valid frequency. It's not about right or wrong or bad or good, just about difference. We need all these frequencies to actually get through our day to day. And we are dealing with different situations. There are certain times when we definitely are vibrating at a frequency where we will not see what is there. So this friend sent me this Muji video, and I said to her, "My goodness, this is a very fantastic video. This was some years ago that I've been sending it to you for years." I said, "No." And then I checked my WhatsApp history, and she had been sending them to me. But if she had told me, if I had not seen the history, when we talked, when I was talking to her, and she told me that she'd been sending it to me, I would not have believed her because I was so certain that this was the very first video that I was seeing, but I was not at the frequency to even acknowledge it.
You weren't ready.
When we are ready, and the readiness is a frequency. It's a frequency that allows us to actually acknowledge it, to see it, and to work with it, to engage with it. And we can become much more intuitively engaged with our own self. And then we can align to what we prefer. Not about right or wrong, it's what we prefer. So we can be more congruent with the parts of us that really will provide us with our best outcomes. And it's different for everyone. Somebody's best outcomes may be involved in the aviation industry or the motorbike industry. Some other person's best outcomes may be being a parent. The different things that we have desires for, intentions for, themes. We've all come to explore. There are 8 billion people on the planet. We've all come to explore 8 billion different things. We're all different. And it's about understanding our own self, accepting our own self. And that makes it easy for us to allow others to be who they truly are.
Yeah, yeah. See, there's some days where I will think everything is a sign, and then there's other days where I don't see anything, or I'll just be like, okay, you've been looking at your phone a lot. Of course, you're seeing 222, 333, 444, you know? So it's kind of just trying to decipher what's a sign and what's not a sign. Should I look into this or, you know, not?
Yeah, it's synchronicity. Synchronicity are meaningful coincidences. They're things that will speak to us to continue to do something. That's positive synchronicity. The things that will speak to us to do less. For instance, we're about to watch TV or, on our laptop or whatever device, and it doesn't work. For some reason, there is a Wi-Fi fault or there's something. We get a message that says to us, you cannot access this at this time. That's negative synchronicity because what we desire, we get in a block.
Mhm.
What we're passionate about or what we're excited about, we get in a block. And it's only telling us to go another way to do something else. So every single thing that's happening is synchronicity. It's sometimes positive and it's sometimes negative. And we can engage with it with that intention, engage with everything happening to us with that intention. If we choose, it's a choice because lots of us will come into this lifetime and pass at the age of 80 or 90 without actually having any connection with higher self. When I say connection, meaningful connection, because the connection is there. We cannot be disconnected from the higher self. It's the connection is always there, but are we consciously aware of it? Is the thing. And we can come into this entire lifetime and not be awakened. That is a choice. That's okay. It's got to be okay because everybody has come to do something different. So yes, there are things happening in our day to day. And sometimes we think, oh, I'm not being guided. We're always that we cannot not be working with synchronicities. They're always there. It's whether we're conscious of them or not. And we can become more conscious of the times when we feel the higher perspective, when we feel the love, the compassion. We know the connections, the positive synchronicities are high frequencies. They're high frequencies, and we are being told, keep going, keep going. Yes, you're definitely on the right track. And then there's times when we feel a low frequency. We're being told this is not the path. So when we feel down, when we feel anxious, that is not the place to stay. You need to move to do whatever, use whatever modality, maybe reading a book, maybe going on a course, maybe watching a YouTube video, maybe doing hypnotherapy, maybe a meditation. We can stack our energy throughout the day. Gratitude is a higher perspective. And sometimes just sitting down and telling ourselves three things we're grateful for in that moment in our lives takes us to a higher level. So we can have a toolkit of different modalities and different habits that we form that allows us to raise our frequency whenever we come across negative synchronicity, whenever we come across something that is bringing us down. It's only telling us we're not wicked, we're not sinners, we're not only of those, we're not victims. We are actually receiving messages that there is another way. There's something else you need to do. It may be a disease, a disorder, an illness, whatever it is. That is what we have put down or presented to ourselves to give ourselves an opportunity to change what we want to do, to change where we want to go, to do things differently, to pause, to consciously begin to take the steps that will really take us to a higher level. And this is how, this is, I didn't always think like this. I didn't always see things as higher perspective or lower perspective. This is all through my connections with my guides, because I'm also a light language channel. So I channel a lot of beings that connect with me when I take a breath and I have set that intention to connect. And I really got to understand perspectives, that we have both the lower perspectives and the higher perspectives at our fingertips. And it's all about what we choose to connect with. Nobody's sending us these messages. We are the ones that have them within us, and we're choosing what we feel will work for us at that point in time. We're always doing the best that we can. I think that's something I have come to really believe, that no matter what is happening, we're doing the best that we can with the
Yes.
resources that we have, with the knowledge that we have, with what we have learned, with what our trauma is allowing us to do. We can come to believe that no matter what is happening, I'm doing the best that I can. And that belief in self is a higher perspective, and it raises our frequency, raises our vibration, and then we can see opportunities that are resonant with that particular vibe. We can
And
only see opportunities that are resonating at our vibration.
mhm. And so is everyone else. That was very helpful for me to realize and remember is that everyone else is doing the best that they can with where they are and what they were given.
So key. It's compassion. The more compassion we have for our own self, the more compassion we're able to offer. When somebody who doesn't love themselves say they love you, I heard Maya Angelou say that when somebody who doesn't really love themselves say they love you, it's like a naked man giving you a shirt to wear, and you think, excuse me, why are you not wearing this shirt?
Mhm.
Why are you naked and you're giving me clothing to wear? We can only really give what we have. People only feel comfortable receiving from those who they sense have an abundance of what they're giving.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like accepting food from a homeless man.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. So there's the thing about charity. When we give, we can give from a full cup. or a fuller cup other than when we are empty. The people receiving these things value it more. So we've got to give ourselves first, because what we then give holds more meaning, is accepted even more, it's accepted more wholesomely, is appreciated more when we're coming from that place.
I have so much more to cover with you. Are you okay if we go the whole hour?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. I want to dig into the law of attraction a little bit and give some tangible techniques for the listeners. So, how can we effectively apply the law of attraction in our daily lives to manifest our desires?
Yeah. I cover this in my SMIT program. It really is a step-by-step thing. The law of attraction is not a one jackpot, one hit scenario. There is some level of understanding that we need to have about our own self. Because we may desire something, but we really are not in a place to receive it, or it's not the right time. There is an understanding that we need to have an understanding of timing. There is a timing that the higher self has timing to things. Not about time, but about timing. Because there's certain things that we need to do before we can do certain things. And the higher self is very aware of those things. So if we are trying to attract something that is not time, that the higher self believes it's not time for us to attract it, we are going to be pushing against a really, really solid wall. So it's important for us to understand our own self and understand the higher self communication with us. And it's through that synchronicity, through our passion, there's certain things that we're passionate about. That is positive synchronicity. It's the language of our higher self. And when we are trying to attract things, we can begin to sense, what am I passionate about? And it's different from having anxiety, because passion is really, we know when we have whatever it is that we enjoy doing, whatever it is that we have a talent at. It could be, in a creative space, it could be in a nurturing space, it could be in a social space. We all have different gifts. And the good thing about life is it's never just the one gift. The law of attraction is really about us understanding what our gifts are, understanding what we're passionate about, understanding the experiences that we're having, and coming to resonate with those things. We will find ourselves focusing on them, and whatever we focus on is what expands. We're focusing on things that are not working for us. We will expand them, we will attract that. Whatever we focus on is whatever we put our energy into is what is going to expand around us. Understanding those different energy frequencies within us, and understanding that sometimes we want something, but it's not time for that thing to come forward because there's something else that we need to have. I remember when I my first husband and I, we didn't have kids as quickly as we wanted. We were married for 10 years before the kids came. And that was a really difficult time. Um, but I didn't understand that I wasn't ready for kids. I felt that now we're married, the next thing is kids. Why? What else? Why? What else happens after you get married? Is kids. And that's what everybody tells you. Everybody, most people anyway, are told that now you're married, bring on the kids. But I was studying, I was passionate. I wanted to have kids, but there was a stronger passion within me. And that was to really continue with my studies and get a really good job, build my career. So even though everybody was saying to me, um, have take time off your career, how many degrees do you want to have? How many degrees can one person have? You know, you need to focus on your, or my mother-in-law will say to me, you know, a time comes when you stop studying. And she was so nice. And the thing is, it wasn't like I was on the pill or anything. It just wasn't happening. We were trying to have kids, but it just wasn't happening. And it's only now I can look back in retrospect and know that it was about timing. But there was a stronger passion within me, without a doubt. I was more passionate about my career. Somehow I knew that if I didn't focus on this before I began to have kids or continue having kids, it would be tough. It would be tougher. There was a part of me that had that belief that have your studies, have your career, and when you've built your career to a particular point, the kids can come. There's another part of me that felt that the kids can come now, but I wasn't attracting that. I was attracting the more passionate. And where my focus was my career, and I was doing very well. I rose to very great heights in my because I focused on it and I was good at what I was doing. But we can come to understand the passions within us and come to understand the different identities that have different beliefs and different passions. And what is the stronger feeling? What is a stronger passion? And we know that by what we're good at, what is flowing, what we may have different gifts and talents, but what do people know us for? What do they come to us for? When they say, "Oh, what do you know about this person? Oh, she can do this, or he can do this." That's a sign. That's a sign to us that this is what we're attracting, and I can begin to align myself more to this because that is where I'm going to get the best out. People will say, "Oh, you must be a doctor, you must be a lawyer, you must be this." Any career could make you a millionaire. Anything, a writer, a plumber, whatever, whatever profession can make millions. This is what we are now discovering. Any profession at all can make millions. You could just be a YouTuber and do nothing else but be a YouTuber, which used to be what people who didn't have anything to do in life used to do. Now I'm a YouTuber. You're a YouTuber. We're all enjoying this now and we're seeing the value of it. And we can really come to open up our minds as to what is possible. What am I seeing around me? Take self-awareness. It takes mindfulness, being aware of what is giving me the best outcomes, what is not giving me the best outcome, and holding space for the parts of you that are not giving you the best outcomes and healing those parts in trauma recovery and allowing those parts to surrender so you can attract more of what you are really, really, truly passionate about. Not what the world says you to be passionate about, but what your core fundamental consciousness is passionate about, what your soul contract is passionate about. And we can just have a lot more of an easier life, flow more with life.
Does this also have to do with the rate that our cells are vibrating? Going back to that and the level of our vibration, as far as the law of attraction, we attract different people, circumstances, jobs, situations based on the vibration of that and the vibration of us. So maybe your vibration, you weren't at the vibration of a mother yet, or I don't know about you, but I had to download probably 3 or 4 years before starting a YouTube channel to start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I didn't listen. In hindsight, of course, I wish that I did. But what was that about? I mean, I had the download, so I feel like I was at the vibration, but I didn't listen, so maybe I wasn't at the vibration. Can things like that happen with law of attraction, that we
Yeah,
miss it and then we miss the opportunity?
yeah. I don't think we miss it because we're empowered beings, you see. Whatever, if there is something that we feel called to do, but we step back because there's something within us to heal. There's something within us. There will be things that you were doing that was getting you ready to actually take action on that vision, on that intuition. I I always see it as it is as it needs to be. It is that because if I mean that example of my friend sending me the Muji, honestly, there was absolutely no way I could have seen those videos all those years. I was not in that space. I was very much into psychology. I was only into what was not spiritual. I would only read nonfiction books that were not talking about spirit. The minute anything came up that was mentioning spirit or mentioning any kind of meditation was not for me. But then I began to um, become much more open minded because my son was having sleeping problems. There will be things that will happen that will bring us back on track, bring us back on the path. And I was open to try different kinds of therapies, different kinds of modalities to help him sleep at night. And Reiki energy healing was one of the things I tried, and it worked in one day. The energy healer sent the Reiki energy healing because Reiki can be sent by distance or it can be done face to face. He didn't even have to come to the house. She sent it by distance. And he slept through the night. I was sold. I was sold. Nothing could have prepared me or pulled me in the direction of Reiki except that. I had resistance to it, but there was something that was going to happen that would dissolve that resistance. It could not have happened before then. So these are the things that I've come to see that if we have an intention, if we have something that is drawing at us to do, if we don't feel called to do it, that's okay. But it's important for us to stay conscious of what we desire, what we want. Okay, I don't want to do this now, but what do I want? Okay, I don't want to use spiritual modalities to heal my son, but what do I want to use? So I want to use occupational therapy, I want to use medication. Carry on in that path because you will keep hitting the block, that solid wall that will keep enabling you to explore different things because you're staying conscious of your true intentions. And then when you hit that modality, or when you hit that experience, the resistance will drop just like that. But we have to stay conscious and not be asleep. We have to, we're not, it's a choice. It depends on how we want to explore and what themes we've come to explore. So, but if we've come to explore spiritual awakening, we will have times when we are not conscious, and then a time will come when we cannot get out of bed without being conscious. We're waking up, we're stuck in the energy, we're using gratitude, we're using a lot of modalities that keep us in a high frequency. We are staying consciously, reading the books, using whatever, watching the videos, aligning with friends, understanding the frequency of abundance and other different kinds of abundance, but they all carry the same frequencies, not all about money. And money is a powerful abundance code, but there's also gifts. Being given a leeway on the highway when you're driving. This is compassion. It's a gift. It's abundance. Being synchronicity is abundance. This is, this is the way our higher self talks to us. We can have an abundance of synchronicities by being consciously aware. It's there. It's how much awareness do we have towards it? Imagination is a powerful abundance code. Because when we can see it, we are vibrating at a very high frequency, and we will call it forth. We will call it forth. This is one of the really powerful forms of law of attraction. When we can see something. I remember trying to imagine myself having a lot more money. I wanted to start having much more, regular income every month. And I wanted to visualize myself. And I have a vision board is one of my modalities. And I wanted to visualize myself having money, dollars pouring on me. And I couldn't. Then I thought I'll go on Canva and I'll have a picture of myself and I'll have dollars pouring on that picture. I still couldn't do it. How can I have more money flowing in my life if I cannot even have a picture of myself? There was a resistance to it. And I wasn't sure, there was a fear to it, there was an anxiety to it. And I had to start with a picture of another Black woman having dollars pouring on her. And that's what I started with before I could, a couple of years later, now have a picture of myself. I mean, this is really about understanding the levels of abundance that we want to attract. So yes, the law of attraction, you may want to attract $50,000 a year, but your frequency is only able to be comfortable with 5,000 a year. So it's about really working with that 5,000, and then you can go higher and higher and higher. But understanding what is coming to us, what the synchronicities are telling us. If there's a block, it means try another way. There's a resistance there. Be compassionate with yourself and try another way. If there's a way, you will go through. So keep going until you see a block and then try another way. And be gentle on yourself. This is so key, that compassion, to hold space, because surrender only happens from a place of love. Nobody, even children, do not learn. They don't. You have to love. They have to know you're coming from a place of love. So the ego self will not surrender. The healing that needs to happen will not happen unless it meets love, whether it's your love or the love of a coach. I had to go to a coach. I had to go on programs to develop an understanding and resonance with love and compassion. Because trying to do it on my own was just not possible. And we have to be ready to ask for help in things like this, because we only know what we know. And if we do not understand love in a way that it would serve us, we will not be able to engage with it and use it to manifest the things we want at the vibration that we need.
Bola, I want to invite you to use a photo of me next time. I wonder
It
where
will be
that.
my reflection, though. This is the thing. It's going to be, this is the interesting thing about reflection. I would love to use your photo, but it's really about getting to a place where I can use my photo,
Right, right.
because it's really got to be resonant with me. It's really about our own self. But we can start off with another picture, but we really do want to connect and resonate with us. Come to accept that this body, this persona, this essence really can flow and flow in a river of money, in a river of abundance. To be really comfortable with that and know that money and all these abundance codes is just love. To be comfortable with love in whatever form it wants to come. That takes a lot of healing, because we're only reflecting what we allow ourselves to experience. And when we stop allowing ourselves experience low frequencies more and more, we can begin to experience more high frequencies. But it's got to be through surrender, through love, through compassion, through our perspectives from mother.
I'm going to start a new tradition with you. And so I would like you to pick a number 1 through 100.
60.
Okay. Your final question. What's the most thoughtful gift you've ever given?
Love.
Hmm.
It comes in so many different forms. Um, but that frequency of love is my most thoughtful gift. Yeah.
That's perfect. Where can people go to find more, to learn about your SMIT program, Emotional Mastery, and to buy your book and find out all things Bola Abimbola?
Thank you, Jessica. Yes, the Sweet Emotional Mastery Program. I'm actually in a webinar. I'm starting the season 12 of the program on the 1st of October. So it's a two-month program, and this webinar will be on the 30th of September. So the links are on my website, www.soulspacehealing.com. And the book was published by Balboa Press, a division of Ahaz. And it's available anywhere books are sold. The paperback is available anywhere books are sold. The Kindle is available on Amazon. It's also available in audiobook. Sorry, audiobook was published about a month ago, but I'm doing the official launch on the 28th of August this year. So it's available now on Audible. And yes, you can find me on Facebook, on TikTok, as Bola Abimbola, on TikTok as Daily Soul Bites, on YouTube as Bola Abimbola Official. I'm also on Instagram, Soul Space Healing, and my website. My website is really the best place to get all the information about me. Soul Space Healing.
Thank you so much for being here, Bola. I highly recommend going to check out her YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description, of course, along with everything else, the website, the book, all of it. Such a pleasure getting to connect with you, getting to talk with you. I could probably talk with you for hours. So thank you for giving me an hour of your time. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit the subscribe button, come back for more amazing guests like Bola, and I hope you have a beautiful day.